countdown has begun, meaning we are going to be heading in. I'll chime in if needed, but take it away, Ryan and Moxie, as we head on into the draft.
Thank you, Thatcher. So this is probably like the main question, I suppose, is which is the biggest bad? Which is the biggest Avengers level threat that you're going to be banning out first? And both teams deciding to take out the Elsa, a protection over onto the Gambit means it has to be a little bit different. I'm wondering here, like, so yeah, like the trying to get one-sided Gambit might be a keen thing, but both teams have protected it, meaning that we are going to see it in action.
Yeah, and I mean, now potentially we have to see a Loki mirror ban come through from the side of ALTR, as you don't want to allow Navi to have 2 casts of Raging Row Flush, plus the fact that the ultimate generation got nerfed means that there is much more value placed on the value of Regeneration Domain, which is literally ultimate level at the cost of a cooldown. So not surprised to see that Loki is going to be the next ban lock coming on through from ALTR. We do still have Star-Lord in play as well, and while the duration of Raging Row Flush got nerfed, the team-up power that it has to synergize with Galactic Legend as well as Rogue remains as strong as ever, and Rogue will actually be the next Vanguard target coming on through from ALTR before Navi managed to secure one-sided Vanguard Deadpool.
Seems very like quick on these decisions as well. Like both teams wanted to lock in this stuff pretty early, but we are seeing like deviations here. Maybe there's a chance to try to take out something alongside. Psylocke has been buffed recently, and with the mention of Dive, her stocks go up massively. Not going to see it in action, at least for Navi today. Is it going to be ALTR Esports that decide to try to one-side it? It's looking like they're going to highlight and go over the Rogue, so that Vanguard line is going to be a little bit different. But what's the likely character that might pair with the Deadpool Vanguard for Navi and then for ALTR Esports? I guess we'll sort of see depending on what Navi go for last here.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to have to see, as they're going to ban out the Daredevil last. So if ALTR do want to have any element of dive, they're not going to be able to have the Daredevil to match Jerkies, and it feels like Navi are actually going to be leaning into that dive angle. They were able to get the Vanguard Deadpool, but they've also got Trust Me on that Venom, and while Jerky won't be able to go with the Psylocke, there's still plenty of duelists who can keep up with the tempo that a dive composition brings to the table. What I really want to see is how ALTR Esports tried to use Team Captain on the Rogue. He was really, really good on the Rogue in the Marvel Rivals Championship, but Heartbreaker value has also skyrocketed because being able to take your opponent's ultimate charge from 100% down to 80 is a huge change in comparison to what it was before.
It's gone from Heartbreaker being a bit of a tiff to an absolute like relationship destroyer potentially with that, and for that reason, like, you might see a little bit more of the characters that do beast up the speed of like getting these ultimates. But right now it's Navi back for a new season. First place finish at the first international event that we saw, second place at the grand finals. They've made some big upgrades to their firepower. We'll see just how this team does against ALTR Esports that are probably the underdogs in this one, it's fair to say, but at least they have some more recent practice with the MRC.
Okay, well, Navi had the option to go for Fate on the White Fox, but he's instead going to go for the Jav 2-player up with both the Deadpool and also that Venom, as it will be them rolling out on Dive, having to just adjust to where ALTR Esports decide to send Z-Cube Strange Portal, and it looks like they're just going to try and take themselves up onto that high ground, make it a little bit harder for the Dive to come up against them, while dropping the Strange on to be able to keep control of that point, so that Navi can't just pick up the first control of it and then start cycling their players' lives with the higher mobility.
Because you have got more divey compositions, there's more chance of a player being isolated, so jumping in might be good. But here, Navi were keen and aware of it. The brawl and the fight is about to start. Navi not quite getting progression onto the point before ALTR Esports have forced them back, but the first elimination coming in against Jerky means that the Daredevil is going to be out just for the time being. And we are just watching Team Captain holding his own up against Trust Me, that's had to use that resilience in order to survive a bit longer. But no eliminations come in before Rajaro's actually able to get up the banhammer.
Yeah, Rajaro gets the first ultimate online as Deadpool does not have to worry about those universal changes. It's just a 1-minute cooldown on the ultimate. Jerky's also back in the mix as well and putting up the pressure on that backline together with Trust Me. So this time we're not going to be getting to see ALTR's backline survive the dive, and no one, Ryan, had actually picked up the point the whole time. So Navi being able to pick it up now, plus having that first cast of Raging Roll Flush, means that the next time ALTR Esports walk through one of these chokes, they're about to get absolutely tempo rolled by a dive team that decides to take first turn.
Yeah, it's in hand for level 1 Croc, and Terra is 90% away from having a Galactic Legend. That seems like the most common combination that you're going to run in and use, and it's whether the strategists on either side of ALTR Esports are going to be prepared for it at this rate. Z-Cube, after using the portal play for Dr. Straight, is going to stay on it, and trust me, has been taken out. So it is a 5v6 currently that Navi need to be holding onto. They might be able to catch Terra that was trying to go in for the offensive, but there's the combination. Even a player down, the combination is just too good, and you're seeing the elimination feed fill up with the royal blue colors that is Navi.
Oh, it's more painful than that, Ryan. ALTR tried to use Raging Royal Flush to live it. Hatro goes down with the ultimate active. So now when they try to play this retake with Whoops' Galactic Legend, it's not synergizing with the Raging Royal Flush. And you can see, Navi, they know they don't have to have as much respect as they would if the Gambit ultimate were there to superpower it. In fact, if they just hold close at these chokes and force Exo into using that invisible boundary, it will be static and off point, and Navi can fully disengage it.
Seems very out of character to use it in that case. You have got a lot that could work with it now, but now Monarch has the Dance of the Butterflies. Heartbreaker is going to be used, as well as the invisible boundary to force a fight on the objective. Eye of Agamotto actually clears out and is able to get a pick onto Terra, but trust me, he's managed to trade it. Still going in hard. He has to go in at pretty low health, but he's got the resilience in order to survive this bit more. He's brought the fight back to the objective, which is nearing towards completion for Navi, and whilst ALTR Esports trying to fight on it, it's forced out a lot of ultimates, but there's not much time for ALTR Esports to contest this one.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing the Galactic Legend come through, but Monarch's already down, so no Dance of the Butterflies to overlap that damage. And it seems like it's just going to be Navi closing things up now.
Seems to be the case. Navi now taking out everybody one at a time. It was a bit of a rough start to begin with, but a pause has come in. We do have these for any disconnects, any issues that is happening for the teams for Ignite. But it's looking like this point is at least done. And I mean, first game of casting with the new change, I think we're gonna sort of go back to us for a second. It really is a case of how much the ultimates are really necessary. One mess up of Royal Flush decided that whole point in the life.
Yeah, and I mean, even when ALTR Esports had so many of the ultimates that they burned in the next fight, they used Invisible Boundary, they used Heartbreaker, Eye of Agamotto, and they started getting eliminations, but crucially, they didn't manage to clear both Rogero on the Deadpool and Trust Me on the Venom. So both of those Vanguards, with the help of Fate, just lived on the point, refused to give up the cap, and by the time that ALTR Esports were actually ready to try and take those Vanguards down, Navi's whole team were back, and they didn't even have to give up any temporary point control. They could just keep funneling themselves to that front line and continue playing it to the point that we get to OT, and ALTR Esports currently have a Strange holding down the front line, Z-Cube at half health, which means that no portal potential as well, Ryan, for ALTR Esports to refresh their players and keep this overtime going, potentially for Monarch to turn the tide with that Dance of the Butterflies. So this very much is round done.
Yeah, we do sort of finish it out in the end. I'm very curious too, because obviously one of the changes that came in with the ult charge rate being increased for a lot of characters, Deadpool also got nerfed with his ultimates. There's more of a cooldown before you can start building up charge after using the various ultimates that he has across the different roles. But it still feels like his charge rate getting the ultimate first in a fight is incredible. And so for maps like this, having a one-sided Deadpool as a Vanguard is incredibly important, because Rogero was the first to get his ultimate, and he's going to outpace literally everybody right now.
Yeah, especially because you just slap it on a strategist, right? And that allows level 1 Crook to massively outpace Hatro in terms of building up that first Raging Royal Flush. And as we saw, Navi being able to literally just send out that Gambit ultimate alongside Terra's Galactic Legend caught ALTR Esports when they tried to go for the Gambit Mirror, but just didn't have anything to be able to also synergize with the ultimate aggressively. Speaking about aggressive, we're going to be seeing Z-Cube yet again go for this teleport, but it looks much more aggressive this time. Instead of taking high ground and being a little bit more neutral to try to rotate to bunker beneath the point to make yourself a little bit harder to dive, they might try and jump onto someone from Navi's end and force out that Raging Royal Flush that level 1 Crook has to try and kite it.
He's used it actually very quickly as the offensive has come in. You've got Dance of the Butterflies that's used in response from Monarch, but it has found very little. Everybody's cleaned up. It's a complete team wipe from Na'Vi just off of the Royal Flush. Anything else, like Terra's actually held onto the Galactic Ledge, and it was just the dive was so good from Rajaro. Yeah.
If you look at ALTR Esports Ultimate economy, right, they didn't have Gambit Ultimate. They also did not have Invisible Boundary. So Terra actually holding on to Galactic Legend now puts a lot more pressure onto EXO's ultimate and allows Na'Vi to use the Starlord ultimate in the next engagement when ALTR still don't have that defense. As we can see, Fate and Trust Me already wrapping all the way around the back. They've got symbiotic shenanigans to give themselves a little bit more staying power, but they're also turning the attention to allow the Venom in and open up the space for Jerky to come through with Let the Devil Out, which ALTR Esports have no answer to.
Fight is coming hard from Team Captain, able to find a pick at least onto one of the duelists and taking the fight onto the objective. But there's the Galactic Legend ringing through just after the Banhammer. The Cherokee is not going to be too far out of the fight either, that has used to let the devil out. And now finally there is a pick at the end of it for Terra, able to sort of clean up the fight. Level 1 Crook is going to go in and be on the offensive too. It's a meta that really does suit Navi's playstyle in all of these cases. And ALTR Esports, even though the fight started off in favor for them, it was short-lived and no progression on the objective at all from them.
Yeah, I mean, ALTR Esports are actually going to swap off of the Invisible Woman and put EXO over to the Cloak and Dagger instead. So no Force Physics, no Invisible Boundary, but you do get those 2 charges of Terror Cave to try and just slam onto Trust Me when the Venom shows up. As Na'Vi being a little bit more committal in terms of how they're playing the dive. Not so much the soft dive, especially with Team Captain looking for those grabs on the Rogue, as they're going to be trying to make a play with this engagement off the Heartbreaker, I would imagine. Fate's the only thing on Navi's end, which is going to allow them to be able to live and kite out as Level 1 Crook's a little bit away from the Raging Royal Flush to survive.
It's been pulled back a little bit. It is just Fate with the It's Jeff in hand for the team, but Level 1 Crook, because he used that Royal Flush so early, he is going to have it as it hits 99%. Heartbreaker built up very quickly again from Team Captain, and now you do have a Galactic Legend used on the other side. Royal Flush is used to try and counter it, but that alongside the Dance of the Butterflies is enough to actually take out Jerky. He seems to be the only one that's actually going down from Na'Vi. The strategists are doing such a good job at surviving. Other than Jeff, he tries to go for the grab on to pull people off the objective on the side, but he gets taken out as he's in transit. Now you've got Terra that's actually found that fight up against EXO, and so you're missing some of the backline at the very least, but now more picks starting to go in favor of ALTR Esports. If it wasn't for Rajaro actually using the Banhammer, wins the fight on the point cleanly. Trust Me is about to come in after just giving a little bit of time for the respite, and ALTR Esports can't get anything on the board for this first domination. Na'Vi showing that they really like the dive is the new thing again.
Yeah, I mean, Na'Vi, they love running the dive, they love running the Venom, they absolutely adore the jet strategies, so it very much is a very strong meta for them. And also, like, the synergy that we were getting to see coming through from the team was really, really good. Level 1 Crook is going to be picking up the MVP, the first of many, I am sure, as he's been looking incredibly comfortable on the Gambit, but everyone from Na'Vi, in terms of how you wanted to play the dive, they were all playing it absolutely perfectly. Like, Trust Me, Fate, even that we were getting to see Jerky on that Daredevil just going in, disrupting ALTR Esports, splitting the team's attention. One person would get grabbed, but it would be traded by 2 players finding a greater, higher priority elimination. Heck, they even used Let the Devil Out to just force out the Raging Royal Flush from Hatro and then kite it, making sure that Level 1 Crook was able to hold on to the full charge of his ultimate, and we got to see that Galactic Legend that we talked about being used to clear ALTR Esports from being able to get the point flip. So the moment that the Rogue ultimate was done, Na'Vi get to answer back, and there's very little ALTR Esports have to be able to react to it.
I think it's pretty telling too that like the 2 protects that come in, like sure both teams have access to the Gambit, but then you've got the one-sided Deadpool Vanguard. Neither of those 2 players got eliminated once. Rajaro not going down 19-0 and then 20-0 for Level 1 Crook. So it's not only a case of being able to play the draft very well for Na'Vi, it's the fact of like if these characters are like win conditions, these characters are literally Thanos before Thanos gets added into this game, they know how to make sure that they get effective use out of it, which goes a long way.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot of teams try to go for a prioritization of one-sided Vanguard Deadpool. Because, like, as we talked about, right, Banhammer as an ultimate is so impactful at being able to just tempo roll these fights early on. But not just that, his neutral kit is insanely strong. We were seeing every single time we look from Rajaro's POV, he's jumping someone on Alter Esports, he's lobbing down that magical unicorn shield to be able to block LOS off of the strategists, being able to keep the heals going to them, and they're just down in about 2 seconds. You see them there, and it's literally a Houdini magic trick. You blink, you miss it, that player is gone.
Talking about, I'm back by the way, we're talking about the Vanguard Deadpool. You're also seeing the fact that it does team up so well with the Jeff. A double Jeff team up coming in that was prevented from the side of Alter. They did not go for that side, meaning that they could have done it. None of the tools were removed from them. They could have gone for that Symbiotic Shenanigans and the Toy Box team up for the massive amounts of extra healing, but they stuck with the Gambit and the Cloak to just try and get the burst healing in exchange. But it didn't work out. Moxie already brought it up really great of just how quickly Na'Vi were able to cycle through ults and take people out before stuff even finished from the side of Alter, especially in that first round where we saw the Gambit get taken out right as Raging Royal Flush comes out, losing the cooldown and obviously the life. That's game number 1, meaning that we're going to be getting ready for map number 2 very shortly, meaning that it now comes down to Alter Esports to choose Convoy or Convergence. It's not like MRC where you can pick multiple of the same map type in a row. Ryan, what do you think could be the change of fortune for Alter here?
Ooh, I remember Alter Esports being very keen on like playing a bit of Museum, or at least being not averse to playing it. I think some teams try to throw it in as a curveball for MRC because it's like, hey, it's the new map, let's see if you're prepared. And Alter were like, yeah, we're prepared, we know what we're doing. Most teams, I think, kind of went to the like comfort picks of like Central Park, Midtown. But like you mentioned, because MRC meant that you could pick the same game mode over and over, there was a lot of domination to go through.
We're going to be heading into a break to see before we find out exactly where Alter are going to be taking us for map number 2. So don't go anywhere. It will be very quick. And when we come back, it will be the continuation of NAVI versus Alter Esports.
I'm trying to help.
Lights out. Suffer in the darkness. Let's pop back up under their noses. Us against the world!
My time to shine.
While Flight Mode's World Tour continues, it's actually us who are taking off, with Navi taking a 1-0 in our first best of 3 of the day. And ALTR have chosen to take us to the Museum of Contemplation, Moxie.
Yeah, a little bit concerned because there's a lot of flank routes, right? Dive is still really, really strong in this, so I would honestly expect to see a big change up in terms of the ban draft. We were sort of hypothesizing how exactly ALTR could approach the ban draft in the break that we just had, and I think like really going for the Jeff or potentially the Vanguard Deadpool would open up a lot of options for ALTR Esports, because not going to lie, there were some fights there, especially on the first round of Husk, that ALTR Esports should have been able to finish off and translate into a point flip, but they just weren't able to clean through the stall sustain of things like that Vanguard Deadpool and finally finish off the fight.
Right, we brought up something interesting earlier in the fact that ALTR have had more time to play in officials with stuff like the Gambit. They've also had more time to play on Museum of Contemplation. This will be Navi's first official match on Museum of Contemplation. Could that experience be a game changer?
I would have said so if we went into MRC into this with none of the changes that we got from the patch. Like the ult generation means that stuff like the Adam triple strategist, kind of like hold line, things like Magneto were really good on this like map route. They're not going to be as played much because it's like they rely a lot on like ultimate coordination and also just get ran over by a lot of the characters that we saw on Celestial Husk on both sides, right? So maybe you still see stuff like D'Angela, like that was a good pick to just be really annoying, use the barriers that you can move through but you can't shoot through to just get in and out of these engagements. But it's also like the draft system, right? It's like whether Navi feel that there's some characters that they might be able to try to isolate away from ALTR Esports to have themselves. I think it is going to be like more of what we just saw from Celestial Husk, really, but there might be a chance to see the likes of Wolverine and stuff again. But because the way the game has changed so much, I don't know if like ALTR Esports are going to be as on the ball as on this as Navi.
We'll be having to find out, so we'll be getting ready to head into that game as soon as possible. Let's talk about some of the other heroes that could be very influential, and some that maybe aren't as much. If we have a look at last stage, for example, this is a map where spawn holds and delays were quite popular. This could bring in heroes like Groot. Why aren't we seeing that so much now? Let's start with Moxie.
I mean, the thing with like the Groot, or when you try to run a triple Vanguard line, is that even if you don't manage to find the eliminations, what you're doing is you're throwing out so many high health pools into characters who scale so quickly if they start stacking up the damage. So like previously on MRC, a lot of teams would be running the Elsa or the Deadpool. So if you literally just threw out triple Vanguard lines in front of them, give it a good 20 seconds, Elsa is at max levels of instinct and popping off those advances literally every 2 seconds. So that was one of the reasons why a lot of teams stepped away from those kinds of strategies.
And going into what we just mentioned there, the Elsa, but we've also talked about the characters that might be trying to bring in bans for ALTR, and that's going to make it more difficult for it, isn't it, right? They have these high priority picks that are almost in every single ban phase. Gambit, Elsa, they still seem to be quite high up in a lot of these teams' priorities, but suddenly target bans start to have to come in.
Yeah, and it's like, how well prepared are you for your opponent? For Navi, you haven't had to show anything for quite some time. They got to see ALTR Esports play. Like, yeah, there's the roster move of like Z-Cube coming in, so it's a little bit different, but you have more like recent data over on what ALTR Esports were doing, especially on maps like this, to know kind of what to take out. But I think it's also an element of like how well they think on their feet, realistically, for like Navi. Like a lot of the characters that they are just very strong on are when they go off of the beaten path. And if people go, oh, what are Navi going to try to run meta-wise, draft-wise? It's very hard to replicate. That's what Virtus Pro did incredibly well last year. Like they sort of found a way to play the game that was hard for teams to just copy and paste themselves because it relied a lot on coordination and execution. Navi is sort of the same. I don't know if we're going to see anything too wild out here. It feels that what we just saw is in line with what they would want to continue on here.
The question is, do we see those target bans? You see, the Contemplation is our second map. This is a convoy, meaning the last map of the series, I believe, has to be Convergence. If we get to that point, ALTR have to break through the first barrier, though, which is making it out the spawn door. Even with dive-heavy compositions, that's still a potentially quite difficult feat, as ALTR will be starting on attack.
It shows as well.
Yeah, like, it's a rough one. Like, maybe they have a strategy where they want to be able to go ham with damage boost. When it comes to being able to break these spawn hordes, like, we're still getting to see a lot of Storm. I know they did remove the team up between Storm and Jeff, which a lot of teams actually relied quite heavily on being used to break the free holds with those Adam Res compositions, but Storm damage boost stacked with things like the Mantis or just a Punisher in that neutral can be incredibly strong at breaking a defensive hold.
Also for Convoy, no more Jeff Nado. Just full stop. This is the first time that we're going to see it in action, so like a very easy thing to just clean up house when you have got these like big health targets. You don't have that option anymore, but I think it's like everything Moxie said. If a Deadpool Vanguard could just churn out his ultimate as quick as a Moon Knight could beforehand, you don't want to give them the chance.
We've lost Jeff Nado, but we do now have Adam leaving a healing flying point behind him if he teams up with Storm, but losing all that ult charge suddenly makes the Karmic Revival a little bit rougher, meaning another thing in favor of those big hefty spawn holds has been taken away, which once again leads us back to dive. Something we talked about the Venom, we've talked about all the other character Deadpools as well. Could we see if they do get targeted out, Navi move over to the Captain America, the Hulk, all these other dive vanguards that are so effective, the Thor even, a personal favorite of our colleague Leg Day.
Shout out to Leg Day, yeah. He's back next week. We put him in the cool box, but he's going to be like, as well as like the new talent that we're adding to EMEA, which, you know, we've leveled up, I think. And I just think for Navi, I think whilst we're sort of waiting for the teams to get like into game as well, it really is a case of like Terra is such a big signing for them, but is he going to fit with the style of like Navi, this very like heavy led approach from Trust Me? A lot of players have outright said that like they've clashed with that system in the past before. I wonder how Terra's going to do with it across the season.
But I think they were aware of that, right? Because some teams in the offseason, like Virtus Pro, we did not hear hide or hair of. Navi entered literally everything they could, even to the point of going and playing in American tournaments, because they just wanted to be able to get reps and build that team synergy as quickly as they possibly could. And getting to see how they formulated those dives on Celestial Husk, I'd say that they're not having communication issues.
We'll have to see how that continues, though, as it looks like our teams have said that they are prepared. So we're going to be heading on in very shortly to the Museum of Contemplation. And we're once again going to really emphasize here that this is going to come down to how ALTR adjust in the draft. So many things that Navi were using really empowered their composition, and ALTR, even if it's not for themselves, if they are able to force Navi to show more strategies, that could be huge, and it is a huge risk of playing first, which unfortunately is outside of their control. Let's start with it, Ryan. If we do you think ALTR should go in for these target bans, or are they just going to try and flip it completely, stick with the same bans, and just adjust their composition?
Oh, that's a tricky thing, because I think there's an element of like, if you have a general game plan of how to approach this, you don't want to just completely U-turn on it. Like, they'll have a good idea on what Navi would want to play, just of the buffs and nerfs alone, and what characters that they want to be picking and playing. It really does feel a little bit for like ALTR. It's like getting used to the system. You've got some players that were on Paradox in stage 2 of last year in Ignite that did get to play on this Ignite system, but there's some players that like this is the first time they've got a chance. It's getting used to it and seeing exactly what Navi do and trying to learn from it.
We're getting ready to head back in. Will they learn? Will they adjust? Will they target ban the Deadpool or the Venom or even the Jeff, as we're going to be heading in to Museum of Contemplation very shortly? Reminder, these are best out of 3s, meaning that it could feasibly be over quite quickly if Navi are able to take this as a 2-0. ALTR, for their debut, they are really going to want to try and take us to a map number 3 here, Moxie.
Yeah, I imagine in terms of the ban draft, it's still going to be Elsa instant ban for both of those teams. But I think we all really want to see an adaptation, like remove the Vanguard Deadpool, or at least don't allow Navi to have it one-sidedly, as them being able to just lead the charge with those initial ban hammers allowed them to set up so much tempo, as there it is indeed. There goes the instant ban onto the Elsa. Now, do ALTR Esports go for something different than the Gambit? No, Gambit is still the first save, which does put a lot of focus on a low-key ban coming over from Navi's side. Now, do Navi go for the Gambit mirror, or do they want to prioritize the Vanguard Deadpool, anticipating ALTR pushing it out instead?
I think that this first part of the draft is just going to be the same, not only for like these two teams if we do see a third map, but potentially for a lot more. It's just, okay, this is like what is just generally strong at the moment to build around. Now we're going to get a lot more like specific, I suppose. And here it's like ALTR Esports.
Please.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to maybe still commit to the Rogue, but I think the other side of it as well is for like Navi, like Rogue is strong. No doubt Navi's Vanguard line can play Rogue, albeit we haven't seen that much of it because we only saw them play MRC. And even then, I think Juriki was Vanguarding on it. It is just more like, they're going to be like, so what? They're going to go for the Deadpool Vanguard again, so that's going to be one-sided. So ALTR Esports trying to stick to their guns, feeling that the Rogue value one-sided and the Psylocke one-sided is going to be enough.
Yeah, that's exact same ban line that we had on the first map. So ALTR Esports probably thinking that by changing the scenery of a Museum of Contemplation, they'll be able to change the outcome of the composition that they run into. Team captain is going to go for that save onto his own Rogue as well, so we'll get to see a very similar sort of outcome of ALTR Esports composition, I'm sure, in anticipation of these dives trying to come on through with those grabs, locking down those dive players, as Navi are going to be able to secure two one-sided Vanguards, one-sided Venom and one-sided Deadpool Vanguard. They've also still got the Jeff if they want to go for it, but we could potentially see that White Fox as well come through, as getting to play those long stretches of sightlines, having as well that teleport to be able to just jump in with your team, or if you're coming under pressure from a dive on ALTR's side, being able to TP out of it after baiting your position initially could be a really strong way of burning out the time.
I was just saying Terra hover over the Black Panther. It is worth adding too that Terra isn't playing on 100 ping this tournament like he was in Season 5. He is in Europe, and that is an even more terrifying prospect with how well coordinated his team is. But for ALTR Esports, for a lot of players like Team Captain that haven't played since the Invitational, at least at like this level, this is like a very new system for them. And then for Navi, when they were rad beforehand, they were the team that really worked out how to use this Ignite draft system and break it first. That's how they were able to get such a big win over Virtus Pro to qualify for the mid-season finals, but then to go and win the tournament. So it really is like teams that are very new to this sort of system versus Navi, who kind of wrote the book on how to play it.
Oh, we're getting a mix-up, though. Terra is actually going to be locking the Namor, which is going to be putting a lot of pressure onto Whoops. As ALTR Esports, if they're able to get the Gambit Starlord ultimates at the same time, they will win the Gambit Mirror ultimate off. As Jurkius is going to be playing that Daredevil, trying to intercept ALTR Esports' flanking routes to give his backline the opportunity of adjusting or potentially hitting ALTR's first before they can decide to make an aggressive play.
Yeah, Jericho's job is just keep an eye on where exactly Monarch is going to try and be in for the dive, and it's the backline of Exo that's actually taken out. Not with the team up of White Fox, just in their own right, wanted to see if they could go for something a little bit more high tempo and go in for the engagement. Seems that Navi have held off on this defense. It's not the big and burly kind of compositions that we're used to seeing on Convoy, even back at Season 6 MRC, but Navi is still holding a lot of space.
I mean, it's poke, though, at the moment from ALTR Esports. Like, both of these teams, they're making trades. Rajara's already got the first ultimate ready to go, which I'm sure is about to be slapped onto Hatro on that Gambit. As ALTR Esports, the way that they break this corner is with the Gambit Starlord, which is why we're just seeing Trust Me continue to go put pressure on the backline with those dives. And when everyone's looking at the Venom, it frees the attention from the rest of Navi's composition on these front lines, and one elimination snowballs very quickly into a near full team wipe.
It's a very quick on of Proteus too from Terra. And it's nice to see, actually, we sort of mentioned it a little bit in MRC, nice to see the Namor not stuck in a like forced friendship with Hela. He's able to stand on his own 2 feet, has the iframes in order to survive if he gets dove on himself, but obviously a lot of power to keep the fight away from him. Because ALTR Esports looking to maybe like deliberate the composition, try to reset, albeit they haven't really made too much space. It's just past this like first corner, and all the Proteus is coming into the area in the room. Hatro is the one that's taken out, and you would imagine this is an easy cleanup for Navi off the back of the Banhammer being used too.
That was such a huge catch coming through from Terra's Horn of Proteus. I think it stunned up 4 out of 6 players on the side of ALTR Esports, who, by the way, have abandoned this attempted dive coming through. Monarch is now on the Namor to try and take chunks out of Trust Me and Jerky, as Fate's just going to be able to hold pretty aggressively close to ALTR Esports composition. Has the Jeff to bail out if he goes a little bit too low, but at the moment, ideally, you're just setting up Trust Me to go in, pull attention, take off time, potentially force out an ultimate, and allow NAVI to be able to build Jerky's own ultimate up to synergize with level 1 Crook when we get the Gambit ult mirror.
Right now, there's only 90 seconds left for ALTR Esports to push this a little bit further. Heartbreaker and Royal Flush are going to be the combination that's used in tandem. The lovers, newlyweds, are going to try and fight in with the addition of the Galactic Legend. But it is looking like it's only going to be Trust Me that goes down. A really good disengage, actually, from Navi to not lose too many people. And even Crook's able to get a pick onto his counterpart on the other side. Even 2, so both the strategists for ALTR Esports are down in this engagement. There are still people from Navi dropping, but at the very least, they're buying time and they're buying control of this objective.
I mean, Navi are just, going to hold on this corner. ALTR Esports, the plan for them was use Raging Royal Flush, step 1. Step 2, use Team Captain's Heartbreaker, cannonball into Navi's line so that Jerky's ultimate gets drained away, and then win stage 3 with one-sided Galactic Legend, shredding through Navi's players. The problem is, Navi sent half of their team to occupy ALTR Esports' whole back line, so no one was actually able to walk forward alongside the Rogue and make the damage actually stick, converting into eliminations. So now, with 30 seconds left, Navi still have 2 ultimates to be able to play, and ALTR Esports have at least 3 fights before they get a checkpoint.
It might be a little bit too much for Trust Me to hold, but every pick that we see ALTR Esports get is traded on the other side from the strategists for the most part. Able to put in a lot of hits. The Horde of Proteus connected onto a couple more. Is it going to be the follow-up from Rajaro? It is going to force out the Eternal Bond from the Cloak and Dagger, and Monarch has found that pick onto Jerky. A disengage has to come in, and Navi trying to group up together for a final fight before the end of this checkpoint.
But what's the win condition for ALTR Esports? You're relying on Meteor M, which Navi are just going to be able to intercept off of the Deadpool, potentially off of the Blessing of the Deep coming on through from Terra, as Navi just send the dive yet again to put the pressure on the back line. Team Captain, without that Cloak and Dagger healing, is about to get melted down by Terra in the Namor 1v1, and we get Jerky just getting all of the heal sustain with Fate's ultimate to give him all of the confidence to take that fight fully outnumbered against ALTR Esports back line, while the rest of the team clears the objective. ALTR Esports tried to change the script by going to Museum of Contemplation, but it was the same problems they faced on Celestial Husk. Navi got the same composition and got to do the same tricks, split the team's attention, and win both pockets of fights.
And this isn't just like a new sort of meta thing that's happening, and it's not even to do with like the Ignite, like one-sided draft system either. We were seeing it a lot in like the recent MRC of just, there are too many, not problematic characters, but for some of these teams that came from MRC, it was like, okay, we want to take out these characters to stop Gambit compositions, but then they get kind of ran over by something else. They try and adjust to get rid of the Gambit composition and what they struggled with, and then a third composition comes in that they can't deal with. It really feels like ALTR Esports, respect to them, like keeping the rules the same for the draft, that they want to have some follow through. Maybe it is a comfort pick for Team Captain that he feels like he's going to perform, and the team's going to perform better off the back of the Rogue, because you want to run the Magneto, you're going to want to run the team up with the Gambit. But for like Navi, they just have so many ways to adjust this. You can't get rid of the Jeff, you can't get rid of even stuff like the Daredevil without leaving something else egregious open.
Well, we talked about the adjustments we would likely see on Convoy to the defensive team compositions, and we can see no Adam, no Triple. This is literally just 2-2-2. They're going to try and have an anchor core with Z-Cube on that mag, looking to give a little bit more peel to the backline with the Bulwarks when they get pressured out by this dive. As Jerky, he's out of the spawn room with it. I think we actually are going to see the Spider-Man alongside Fate getting to show us our first White Fox coming on through in the Ignite preseason. But level 1 Crook is the first of all, and that's a great opening pick for ALTR Esports.
It might actually be the first Spider-Man that we've seen in EMEA Ignite as well, to be honest. So it is very, like, an interesting mix for Navi, but it's to be expected. They've been sort of rolling their way through this game, and there's a lot of merit to how good Spider-Man is at the moment, especially when Dive seems to be the name of this game. There have been a couple of picks that have gone against Terra in the end, but Jerky has managed to fall into the backline that has just been absolutely hounded by every single member of Natastin's here. The Banhammer's early in for Rajara. He's going to try and go in for the fight, and it's a bit of more of a scramble. ALTR Esports trying to create some space with this Namor, just shooting from distance, but NAVI have so much time to work with.
I mean, so much map space too. Like ALTR Esports, because it's dive, they've had to bunker up inside the small room, but that means that we're down to potentially one last fight for NAVI to be able to close out this map. Trust me, goes in, soft dives, tries to base some of those resources and clear the space for Jerky, but he does still go down, as did Terra, who actually swapped onto the Black Panther. So ALTR Esports have been able to weather the storm of the Panther and the Spider-Man. They'll be able to have that respect in that regards, at least. Terra goes to the Namor, Jerky the Daredevil, and NAVI get one good fight push with this Raging Royal Flush, although it will be matched by Hatro, as ALTR Esports taking so much damage have been able to build up quite a nest egg of strategist ults.
You got the Royal Flush Banhammer's being used from NAVI, maybe wanting to put an end to this and make sure that this first game is a quick and easy one. You've even got the Kamiho dedicated in from Fate. But he gets sort of taken down, forced back at least, and the fight is a really good look, actually, of where this dive is trying to counter from ALTR Esports, but how the fight is completely split. The Daredevil from Jerky cleaning up shop, a Galactic Legend. It might be a little bit of a short story here over on the side of Whoops. The damage that he did in MRC isn't going to matter in comparison to this freight train of NAVI looking to close it out. There's one last fight, a couple more players in. The portal play dedicated within it's Jeff to try and grab whoever they can, pull it back into the spawn of ALTR Esports, but now it's just if they can get the numbers on board. NAVI even dedicated a Banhammer. They're not going to try and regroup. Despite 30 seconds that this fight has been going on for, you can see just how messy it is, who the calls are going on. Trust Me goes down again, and actually we're seeing Monarch show up on the Adam Warlock, get taken out. He's got the Life Cocoon, that means that he's going to be able to try and contest this one, but there's just more fuel to the fire that is NAVI. Let the devil out has created that space, and NAVI, after full holding on ALTR Esports, win out 2-0 in their first series.
Oh, NAVI are looking so comfortable with this Vanguard Deadpool. Like, Rajara is adjusting absolutely perfectly. Like, that whole last push, when we have the Strange TP, when we have the It's Jeff levels of one-sided sustain, not surprised that he picks up the MVP because he just does not go down. In fact, he picks up two. One Soul Bond has won its course, and I'm sure in the future, a lot of these teams are going to be looking at that ban draft and thinking, is it worth going for that one-sided Vanguard Deadpool target that NAVI have been looking as a win condition? Because both times we saw in the two maps that they played, Rajara was a crucial part of the composition.
I'm pretty sure, let me just double check real quick of how many eliminations went against the backline. So for both Crook and Fate, they went down a total of 4 times across 2 series.
Yeah.
And that's crazy with how offensive they are being, and also just like how little sustenance they need from each other. You saw like from the bird's eye view of some of those fights how split they were, and how level 1 Crook can survive with maybe 2 of his players up against a full dive from ALTR Esports. So it's not only the fact that they're not being eliminated, it's the fact that they're able to actually win out. It's call an ambulance, but not for me, for both of these guys individually in their own sort of ecosphere of playing strategist.
Yeah, but that also like it goes back to what Navi's whole team is doing, because there were moments at our Museum of Contemplation where we were following Navi's strategist POV, and they were just pushing cut because the rest of their team, like Trust Me's going in, soft diving, drawing all of the attention. ALTR Esports have to try and peel that back line, which means that those resources, which could be used aggressively to chase down eliminations onto Navi, they're having to be used defensively instead.
We also saw some adjustments there. We saw some attempts at trying to mix it up, but NAVI with their defensive setup on that early round was just so hard to deal with. You mentioned Trust Me causing the distraction. Rajaro keeping up with the duelists in terms of damage done and final hits in that second round. 7 final hits, which is the same as Terra, which is just wild to see. And you can see why, as Boxy mentioned earlier, that one-sided Deadpool is causing so many issues. And NAVI, former world champions and runners-up from the Global Finals at the end of the year. A very solid first performance, and they enter into Ignite with their first win on the board. But we have more games coming up for you, including one that we are very excited for. I believe it is Reason versus Vision next, which is what we have been talking about. Could be very important for the placements in that group. So don't go anywhere. We're going to head into a break while we get the players ready, and we'll be right back with more Ignite action.